Hello guys, today we'll be covering a 2003 Irish drama film called Song for a Raggy Boy. It's 1939, and the world is on the brink of World War II. The St. Jude's is an Irish Catholic reformatory school, a home for difficult boys. The school is under the rule of sadistic disciplinary Brother John, who prefers punishment over rehabilitation. Nobody dares to go against the brother's rule. The boys are constantly watched by the brothers and brutally punished for minor violations. Every boy in the institution is allocated a number as identification instead of their name. For instance, Patrick Delaney, who's 13 and a half years old, is 743. Liam Mercier is 636, and Gerard Peters is 458. A new lay teacher arrives at the school in the midst of it all. William Franklin is a young man who's recently returned from the front lines of the Spanish Civil War. In their first meeting, Brother John confronts Franklin. He attempts to learn more about the teacher and offers advice that only strength can keep the children in line, subtly warning him not to go against his authority. Franklin, on the other hand, naively thanks John for his advice and continues with his method of teaching. He's open and friendly with the boys. He becomes a ray of hope for the boys by defying Brother John's inhumane rules. Unlike the brothers, he addresses the boys by their names and treats everyone with respect. He even urges the boys to call each other by names and not the numbers. Next, Franklin discovers in his first class that the majority of the boys cannot read or write. He asks Liam Mercier, one of the few boys who can read and write, to teach others. The boys begin learning after being encouraged by their teacher. Franklin befriends and urges Mercier to read poetry, some of it written by communist sympathizers. As Mercier reads Claire Harner's "Do Not Stand at My Grave and Weep," Franklin is transported back in time to remember his beloved who died in the war. One day when the boys are playing, Brother John explains the purpose of the wall that divides the ground into two parts to Delaney, as he's new to the school. It exists to separate the younger boys from the older boys. No one is permitted to touch, lean, or write on the wall. There's a red line on both sides of the wall, and no one is permitted to set their foot beyond it. Anyone who does so, whether by mistake or on purpose, faces severe punishment. Franklin once sends Mercier to Brother John for pushing a classmate from the bench. He's brutally beaten and chastised by John. Later, Franklin discovers him with a bruised face and inquires as to how this occurred. Mercier simply walks away, saying he tripped in the yard. Being concerned, Franklin then confronts Brother John about the ruthless treatment of boys in the name of discipline. John says it's his responsibility to maintain order in the school. He also threatens Franklin not to question his principles if he wants to continue teaching in the establishment. A few days later, Franklin stops Brother John from publicly flogging 743 Delaney. As a result, the boys are woken up in the middle of the night and forced to attend a cold weather assembly half naked. John reminds them that they're suffering because of Mr. Franklin. The next day, Mercier gets angry at Franklin for stopping John from hitting Delaney, causing them to suffer even more. After spying on the boys and hearing them talk about communists, Brother John wants Mr. Franklin to be gone from the school because he thinks the teacher is corrupted and will corrupt all of the students as well. However, when he conveys his wish to Father Damien, the older man disagrees, saying Franklin is an excellent teacher. He states that the brother feels threatened because Mr. Franklin questions his authority. Later, Mr. Franklin is reminiscing about the good old days when Father Damien shows up to warn him about his rivalry with Brother John. Franklin says it's not right to tolerate injustice. The father then explains that he's been wanting to change things at school and that they're making progress slowly and steadily. He admits that he dislikes Brother John as a perfect teacher, but is powerless to do anything about it. On the other hand, Mercier continues his own way of encouraging boys to learn reading and writing. The teacher is delighted to find them cooperating with each other and working hard. Since his arrival, Delaney has caught unnecessary attention from Brother Mac, as he's very attractive. Mac is a pedophile who molests and rapes Delaney in the school restrooms. He warns the boy not to tell anyone about it. The following Friday, the boy tells about his traumatic experience to a visiting priest in confession, who asks him to keep it a secret. When Brother Mac comes to know of Delaney's confession, he punishes him by exposing him fully naked to a cold shower. On the 3rd of September 1939, England declares war against Germany. The news brings back memories of his wartime days to Mr. Franklin. The next day, Mr. Franklin discusses war with his students. It's Christmas time. Mr. Franklin asks his students what they want to do. They have different ideas, but finally, following Delaney's plan, Together, they build a beautiful crib and take it to the church. Father Damien is glad to see it and is proud of the boys. Franklin tells them the boys are talented and they only need a little encouragement. Despite Brother John's objections, Mr. Franklin asks the father for permission and takes the boys who worked on the crib with them after church. They play and walk around the streets having fun in the snow. When they return to school, Mr. Franklin gives each of them a gift. They then retire to their beds. Before leaving, Mercier thanks his teacher, which makes the latter emotional. All this is observed by Brother John. The boys are thrilled to receive the gifts and cannot go to sleep until late. Gerard Peters is excited about seeing his brother Sean Peters the next day and is told to sleep by another friend. Early morning the next day, Gerard waits for Sean on the ground. They're overjoyed to see each other and cross the forbidden red lines to hug from the other side of the wall. Brother John sees them and punishes them for violating the rule. He lines up the two brothers naked in the cold morning, putting other boys behind them to witness the consequences of not obeying the rules. Then he shears the brothers' heads, chastises them, makes them kneel down, and flogs them mercilessly. All of the boys are motionless as they watch the torture. Mercier sends Rogers to find Mr. Franklin. When the torment becomes unbearable even for the spectators, Mercier tells the others not to look and begins chanting, "No flogging," and the others join him despite the brothers' warning. After hearing the news, Mr. Franklin rushes to the grounds and punches the vicious Brother John in the face. Brother Mac intervenes to stop the two from fighting further. The two boys are in unbearable pain. They're bleeding, and the younger one is nearly unconscious. Franklin carries him and the other boys follow. Brother Mac is deeply disturbed by Brother John's sadistic behavior and prays to the Lord for forgiveness, but Brother John threatens to break Brother Mac if he fails him. He also reminds Mac of his sinful behavior. Having no idea what to do, Mac keeps praying. Nonetheless, school activities continue as usual. Franklin works with various students, assigning them tasks that they need to improve on. The boys also learn eagerly and keep making progress. Their bond grows stronger over time. After having his authority challenged by both Franklin and Mercier, Brother John is mad and wishes to put an end to any potential rebellion at the institution. He tells Mercier that helping others is admirable, but it comes at a cost. Later, Mr. Franklin and Mercier discuss what Mercier will do once he returns to the world. Franklin asks how the boy ended up there. Before leaving, Mercier asks his teacher about the woman he loves. He's seen a photograph of her in a poetry collection he borrowed from the teacher. Franklin then tells him that she was great, but has been dead for some time. Biding his time, after a few days, Brother John sends Brother Mac to bring Mercier to the refectory. Mac tells Mercier that he is a visitor and accompanies him to where Brother John is. There, John asks the boy about Mr. Franklin's truth, and when he gets an answer he doesn't like, he strikes him across the face. Upon finding the poetry collection, he asks Mercier to give it to him. Hearing Mercier lying, he gets even madder and beats him continuously. After he beats the boy to his satisfaction, he leaves him there and walks away as if nothing happened. Meanwhile, Brother Mac goes to the class where Franklin is teaching and informs him of what's happened. Franklin runs to the refectory, only to discover that Mercier has already died. He also finds the photograph clutched in the boy's hand. Franklin, devastated, carries out the dead body. Next, he finds Brother John and attacks him, calling him a murderer. Later, Brother John and Brother Mac are taken from the school by church authorities. At Mercier's funeral, Mr. Franklin tells the other boys that Mercier was abused and murdered. He tells them not to believe what they're told, that Mercier died of an illness. He then kisses the coffin and leaves. After a while, we see the fathers and the boys knocking down the wall that divides the playground. Meanwhile, Delaney returns the book Franklin gifted Mercier on Christmas. Later, Franklin decides to leave the school and tells the boys to take care of themselves. As he's about to go through the gate, Delaney recites Eva Gore Booth's poem Comrades across the playground, which he's been reading and memorizing. As Franklin listens to the boy, he's moved by the poem and drops his bag on the ground. He opens his arms, to which Delaney runs with joy and jumps to hug him. Other boys also rushed up to them and join in the affectionate hug.